This model of an MAN TGX 10x4 tractor and Faymonville Variomax trailer comes in a standard Conrad box, and it comes with an instruction sheet that shows the various parts that come with the trailer and also describes how to assemble the trailer part of the model, but there's no instructions provided for the fitting of the parts to the MAN tractor. The packaging of the model is very good and high quality, and inside the foam rubber there's the large MAN tractor, and there are a couple of small bags of parts needed for the tractor and for the trailer. All the other components in the box are parts of the trailer, and that includes the rear 5-line axle unit. There's also a 2-line axle unit, the gooseneck for connection to the tractor, and there's also the main deck beam and a couple of parts which are the width extensions for the deck. As is often the case, there's no information about the real vehicle. There are the usual parts you need to fit to the cab, and the first thing to do is to free up the parts using a modelling knife, and then you can assemble the two parts that make up the mirror on the passenger door, and then that just fits onto the door in the normal way. It presses into holes that are already preformed in the cab, and usually the fit's pretty good so the mirrors stay in and don't drop out. There are a couple of roof aerials to fit on the MAN tractor, and they just press into the top, and the fit on the review model was good, so they just press into place and be adjusted and straightened up. There is another optional piece you can fit to the rear of the tractor, and that's a second towing hitch, but there is an issue if you fix that, and we'll look at that a little bit later. Assembly of the trailer is really quite easy. The first thing to do is to get the gooseneck and then just hitch the 2-line unit onto it. And there are a couple of plastic pins that you use. They're a little bit different from other pins that Conrad use in that only the very end gets used to form the connection, so that it kind of sticks out quite a long way. And that detail probably tries to represent the real machine. At this point you can see that you can alter the angle of the gooseneck onto the 2-line unit, and the cylinders are very stiff, so it'll hold any pose that you want to set. The next task is to fit the deck onto the rear 5-line unit, and it's the same kind of connection with a couple of plastic bolts again being used, just one on either side, and as long as the holes are lined up correctly then you can push those bolts in reasonably well, and they form a pretty good solid connection. Joining up the front and rear of the trailer is dead easy, and it replicates the real machine. It just hooks over onto the front bogie, and once you've hooked that into place you form the complete trailer. After that you only have to attach the pin on the gooseneck onto the 5th wheel of the big MAN tractor, and that's just a good push fit and forms the connection. However, as mentioned earlier, there is one issue if you fitted the second towing hitch to the tractor. It unfortunately fouls the trailer, so preventing free movement. So if you're going to hook up the trailer, the best thing to do is to take out the second towing hitch, and then the range of movement between the tractor and trailer is just fine. To complete the assembly of the base configuration of the trailer, there are a pair of width markers which fit at the gooseneck. They fit easily into preformed holes and can be either extended or retracted. And similarly at the rear there's a pair of width markers to fit, and again they go into the preformed holes easily, and they can either be left extended as shown here, or you can close them up if the trailer is empty. The MAN 10x4 chassis has some good detailing at the rear, with the transmission on the 2 driven axles modelled well, but there's no prop shaft leading to the engine because of the functional nature of the link steering at the front. The wheels on the tractor look good. They're certainly brightly chromed and detailed, and there are different tyres front and rear. The wheels on the 5th axle seem to be the same size as the others, which is close enough to the real machine. The cab has got a good level of detailing with a light bar, beacon lights and roof aerials. And the colour-coded door mirrors, MAN logo and chevrons around the headlights all look pretty good. But one really good aspect of this tractor is the detailed graphics on the cab side, which are really perfectly legible even though they're tiny. Looking behind the cab, the metal equipment tower has cabinets and a large fuel tank but no air lines, and at the rear the lights have plastic lenses but there's no number plate. Moving now to the trailer, both the front and rear axle units have the same heavy metal construction, and the wheel sets are all mounted on plastic supports. The gooseneck is a heavy metal casting with good structure underneath. And on top there's a couple of spare wheels and wheel chocks, and there's a Faymonville graphic and yellow edge stripe. The yellow edge stripes are also present on the axle units, and there are some tiny tie-down points detailed within the casting. The main deck unit is fairly plain apart from a couple of tie-down points, and both the width extensions and their supports are plastic. At the rear of the trailer there are some good graphics, but the light clusters are unpainted, so perhaps look just a little bit too plain. We'll start the features review with the big MAN tractor, and all the wheels roll reasonably well as long as you apply a little bit of downward pressure onto the model. Most of the chassis is pretty standard for Conrad, with the two rear wheels having some float, and the link steering does work on the model, but you can't get much steering before the wheels lock up because they fail on the wheel arches. On this model the fifth axle also has steering and it has a range of movement, but again it fails on the wheel arches. So although the model doesn't roll well when it's steered, at least you can pose it with a hard lock. The rear axle also has the ability to be clipped up out of service, and that works very well. So if it's clipped up as is here, you can see that the rear axle wheels aren't touching the ground. The cab on the tractor does tilt so you can see the engine, but on the review model at least it won't stay posed in a tilted position, which is a little bit of a pity. Moving on to the trailer units, the two-line unit rolls well in a straight line. All of the wheels have link steering and it's a parallel movement, so on the two-line unit all of the wheel sets move the same amount. And each wheel set also has significant rotational and up and down movement possible on the mechanism. One other good feature is that each of the wheel sets can be raised and clipped out of service so that they don't need to be run on the road if the trailer's empty. Moving to the 5-line unit, the features are all pretty much the same. It rolls well in a straight line, and again each of the wheel sets has the same degree of movement as on the 2-line unit, and again any of the wheel sets can be clipped out of service. Turning it over to have a look at the steering, and all of the wheel sets are fully linked together, so if you turn the two at the rear all of the rest turn, and it's a proportional steering mechanism, so the two at the rear steer the most, and that allows the trailer to steer in an arc round a corner. With the trailer assembled we can look at some of the other features, and one is that it's a telescopic unit, so you can stretch out the whole vehicle to be nearly 60 centimeters long, which is quite impressive. And of course a model like this always looks its best when it's got a load on board, so we'll put a wide load on it. So the first thing we'll do is just extend out the width markers, and then we can add a load, which in this case is a large excavator. Another configuration option is that you don't need to have the front 2-line axle unit installed. You can hook the deck straight up to the gooseneck. Another option available is to have a full width deck, and to do that you need to fold out the small beams along the edge of the trailer deck, and they work very well. They fit into place nicely. The last one has to be clipped in by hand because of the design of the trailer. And then you just add the plastic deck boards on, and these fit quite well too, so that the whole thing is fairly stable once it's put in place. So that's done, it's time for another load, and this time we'll put a piling rig on board. And a big heavy tractor and trailer like this does look impressive with a good load on board. It's pleasing to see that Conrad have made another model of a Faymonville trailer. It's been solidly made with a good level of detail, but it's the features and functionality which really give it plenty of display poses. It's a nice model and it's good enough to highly recommend.